Okay everybody, welcome to HeroesLounge GG. So we're going to cast a bit of the amateur scene here today, since we have an HGC break, so we're going to focus a bit more on that. HeroesLounge, in case that you don't know it, is an amateur league within Europe that anybody can play in, even if you don't have a full team and you're an individual person. It's pretty important since they have sign-ups for the next season starting at the end of the month, so make sure that you check out the website if you've never heard of them. That's HeroesLounge.gg. Pretty much Heroes as it's supposed to be played, so it's pretty awesome. This is a Division 2 game that we're currently looking at right now, and we're starting with the best of 3 on Brax's holdout. And already a bit of a caveat here, because one of the things that you of course have to understand is, since we are looking at an amateur scene and we're looking at Division 2, their drafting will center around a lot around like preference picks. So it's not necessarily full on meta what's going to happen here. We're going to definitely have some picks where it's just a personal preference for teams and players to play around that. But of course, since it is Braxis, and since we have a 2-lane map, we still have wave clear highly important in the 4-man rotation. You need a strong solo laner, and they are actually doing a lot of very meta stuff and also looking a bit at Hero League meta itself. So Garrosh banned out as one of the early bans here. Very strong, of course, in any kind of 4-man setup. We have Maiev also banned out here with Gul'dan as a wave clearer, immediately taken on the side of the left team, which is Team Grumpf. They're going up against Team Rip today. Kind of forgot what RIP stands for. It was like rest in pyjamas. No, something with I'm gonna look it up later, but it was just like R something in pyjamas. I'm gonna take another look at that. I don't know how I could forget that, but one way or another, we have Deckard drafted as the support. That's actually pretty cool for the bot lane, because you can really zone out the opponent when they're trying to clear the wave quite easily. We have Greymane also with a heavy commitment already early on to try and get kills through him. I mean, he still has the wave clear when he can commit to the actual wave, but on the other side you already have Stukov set in place. This is a super early pick on the side of Team Rip, so they're definitely going to hover a lot around the zone control that they have. Now, Stukov has started to fall off a bit in the past, because one of the things that made him such a strong support in HGC Europe was that a lot of teams played him with some kind of second layer of defense. That could be Tyrael with shields, it could be a pseudo support like Tassadar, it could be Blaze with a bunker. But the problem that Stukov definitely has in the later stages of the game is that he's not really the best hero to burst heal someone up when they are ganked up upon during a team fight. So that's something that Grumpf could already try and exploit here, unless of course we're gonna see a hero along the lines of Blaze being drafted on the side of Team Rip, which would actually be a pretty decent ban here now as well for Team Grumpf. But they decide over banning out Phoenix. We have Diablo banned from Team Rip. So if you look at the setup right now, both of the teams have highly focused on banning out tanks, and 2 of the strongest tanks in the current lineup have already been taken away. Like if you look at HGC Europe, Garrosh and Diablo pretty much dominated, especially after the Western Clash. But we have Team Rip now with a double pick, and they already have, outside of the Stukov pick that they prioritized, as I mentioned a bit earlier, they have now Chromie for a lot of poke here. And she can really ramp up the damage and can be absolutely fantastic. They still need more wave clear though, and they also have still the first shot at drafting the offlaner up to the top. Now, there hasn't really been a focus on banning out a lot of offlaners. You can have Maiev on an offlane, but she's not really the best hero in that spot and loses out to a lot of the current meta heroes. So we have, as the main tank, actually Varian drafted for the bot lane, trying to set things up for Chromie to get the kill. And with Stukov's silence, that's of course a pretty deadly combo if you can execute it properly. But we have actually a double support setup now on the side of Grumpf. Morales and Kane taken, and no dedicated offlaner. I assume that means that we have Greymane on the offlane, or that they are setting up a 2-3 split instead of a 4-1 split. I think that's probably a bit more likely even. But that now throws in a pretty big... I mean, that's a pretty big curveball that they just threw there. I'm very, very curious to see how that's going to work out. So I would assume that Deckard and Greymane are going to be at the top, and then you have Gul'dan, Morales, and Johanna down at the bot lane. Is that what's going to happen here? I mean, Sonya at the top should be able to hold her own for a bit, but that's now a question of how is the opponent going to react to that. Again, they still need wave clear in the 4-man. Even if they make the 3-man setup, they still need wave clear. And they go for Genji. Now, I'm not sure if I really agree with that. they're definitely very aggressive with the setup that they have and are trying to get their kills. If that's going to be the right choice here, that's something we have to find out. They're lacking in the wave clay department, but they have a lot of kill potential, especially with Mitch playing Varian here and trying to set things up for Chromie and Stukov. If that's going to work out, we're going to find out in game number 1 between Team Rip and Grumpf. Alright, boys and girls, game number 1 is happening here at the HeroesLounge. Grumpf versus Team Rip, rising in pyjamas. And to the left we have Fefsta on Morales, we have Xep on Deckard, Swagobert on Gul'dan, Puzzles on Greymane, and Elrock McBong on Johanna. To the right side, their opponent, the red team, with a Stream on Chromie, Toxic on Genji, Denior on Stukov, Captain Caps on Sonya, and Mitch on Varian. And as we already theorized a little bit during the draft, we are currently looking at a setup where there is going to be a 3-2 split happening for the blue team, since they are running this with a double support. So currently we see Morales and Greymane up at the top lane. Now personally I thought that Kayn might be the one up to the top, so that Swagobert has a little bit more Morales support here. But this is now a situation in which we're having a completely different split clashing in this first game of this Division 2 game. So a 3-2 split for Team Grumpf, and to the right side we have the traditional 1-4. Already heavy pressure against Gul'dan. Genji goes in, and then in the last attempt we have Varian confirming the kill here, getting that in quite easily. Job well done. And that is exactly what we've been talking about during the draft. Having that kill potential here through the Varian combo and with Stukov Chromie is insanely powerful. Now Sonya at the top has already been pressured back quite heavily. Heading into this 1 versus 2, you can of course expect that she's going to struggle here. But Toxic on Genji, great hero for Braxis, is now starting rotations between the bottom and the top lane to try and put on a little bit of pressure. And he can definitely jump on especially Morales in the backline, and that's what they're trying to do right now, just moving past Greymane and going straight for Fefsta, but that's not quite happening out for them just yet. So Toxic jumps away on Genji once again. But at the bot lane, the pressure is still mounting up as we are currently... Ooh, Genji goes down after all at the top lane. Was apparently trying to move away after he used his agility to jump away from Puzzles. And then Greymane going in and dropping him after all. So great job by the blue team here. Grumpf is already setting the top lane up to get the second tower here. So if you are in a situation where your top lane is heavily pressured because the opponent is setting a numeric advantage up against you, you need to win the format. And that is something where we have Mitch now taking the beacon, now that the first objective is on, but they need to do a little bit more than that. Because with Greymane's pressure against structures and his ability to really raise them down, you need to make sure that you match that to an extent in your 4-man setup. And that is something that Team Rip is actually currently struggling to do. So it's a little bit rough for them to make that happen. And one of the reasons is that Genji is just trying to make rotations happen, and they don't really get any value out of the Genji rotation so far. So up to now, they at least have him in a spot where he can soak the experience, as Sonya was forced back. And it's a little bit more difficult to actually engage into the fort for them after they now took the towers. But I'm a little bit worried for the late game setup that we have here for the blue team. Grumpf might be in trouble there. Again, a nice attempt at the bot lane to take Gul'dan down. Chromie wants the pressure, gets the damage in, but Elrond McBong and Johanna is soaking up the damage here. Job well done as they're moving in again, and now Stukov's on his way. But this is a 3 versus 3. Top has been recaptured though, so really nice setup at this point for Team Ripper. They're losing Varian here if they're not careful. Mitch is in trouble and he's trying to get away. Might just be able to escape here. Dodges a lot of the damage, and Stukov keeps him alive long enough so he can pass the gate. Recapturing both of the beacons though, Grumpf sets themselves up for 70% on the objective, where we have 15 captured by their opponent. Now when it comes to talents, we have of course once again the talents taken for Chromie, and we're seeing at the same time Varian, after now the beacon got reclaimed at the bot lane, heading into taunt here. The setup for Chromie is really what all of this is about, and they're going straight for the kill against Gul'dan again, and this time Genji is there, confirms the kill, takes him down, and that's exactly the setup they, in my opinion, need to execute a little bit more often. It's one of those things that you should be able to do a lot more against Deckard and against Morales. I personally would have loved them to just like try and pressure through the bot lane instead of having Genji rotate this heavily to the top, because now they're already in a bit of an awkward position. Captain Caps definitely getting a beating here up at the top lane. I mean, you can't blame him at this point. There's nothing else for him to do but just hold the lane and hold the experience. It's the bot lane that really needs to start pressuring things out, and that's what they're now doing way more aggressively. So changing their strategy from trying to make Genji rotations happen and getting occasional kills to dominating through the foreman and the bot lane. Nice slow and silence against Johanna, and she's down. Great moves here on the side of Team Rip, and they are just racking that bot laning kills. 3 kills against 1. They hold the control of the bottom beacon as well, so no objective in the entire game. And that's something that the blue team seems to be okay with for now. They're just saying, we are going to get the advantage here through the top lane, and they are heavily going straight in for that and trying to take the fort down. And they're going to succeed in doing that. But you can really tell that at the bot lane, we're now starting to see a similar picture, where the 4-man setup that we see for Team Rip is strong enough to push the 3-man back and get the occasional kills whenever Swagobad or Xep start to move out a little bit. So that's definitely something that they are going to look for. When it comes to the build, I also want to quickly highlight that we have for Greymane, for example, a very different setup here. Greymane went straight into Wolfheart on level 1 and into Insatiable as the level 4 talent. So a very heavy focus already on his wolf form and auto attacks, and even going so far as to take now the Wizened Duelist. Now that talent got, of course, changed a couple of patches ago quite significantly, where it's a little bit more forgiving if you die. And that's, of course, what they're banking their hopes on. So that's something to definitely pay attention to. Now we have level 8 coming in. That means Chromie has her heroic. And once again, a kill against the front line. Johanna just doesn't stand a chance with with Stukov having those silences available. And I feel for me personally, especially the setup around Stukov is one of the things that is a little bit tricky, because Stukov is in a position where it's very difficult for the blue team to actually take him down and gank him. Now, outside of that, when we're looking at builds, before we focus on Deckard, let's look a little bit at Johanna, with Hurricane as the level 4 talent now, with the reworked version, and we're having Life Funnel as well. Another thing that we're actually having here right now is a pretty big lag in me reconnecting, so that's already making me a bit of a sad panda. Not quite sure if the BattleNet is currently acting up, or if that's actually on my end. So far, I don't really think it's a problem with the connection. At least it would surprise me, but let's just blame it on BattleNet. That's usually one. This may take a while. Oh, thank you very much. Reconnect faster, dude, because we are in the middle of a fight, but thankfully we're actually seeing most of that happening here right now. And yeah, so Sonya going into a Whirlwind build here, and unfortunately for them, dying now as well. The cool part is, though, that we are currently having the red team getting full control over the objective and taking that on too. And I'm in a position where I'm actually starting to get really... Khaldor has rejoined the game. I'm back in the game, boys. So, let's just put that back in and let's go through that real quickly. So we have... Not quite sure what exactly happened there. There was a BattleNet issue or not. But we have the red team actually taking the first objective. There's not really too much that happened outside of the Sonya kill and the objective going over to Team Rip. Now, the thing is that Rip at that point had actually already given up 92% on the wave as well. So it was a pretty even Zerg wave that moved through. And therefore, we have seen both of the teams basically just defend here. It's still very even in experience, as you can tell. We have Lornado taken as a level 10 ability on the side of Deckard Cain. Outside of that, we are also seeing now go for the throat for Greymane, and we're having for the opponent's team, I guess still an option for Captain Caps to decide to go into deep to jump the backline. Traditionally, it would of course be Wrath of the Berserker that we would see here, but given that you're up against the double support composition, you could actually make an argument for trying to get into the backline with Sonya. Not really the best one, but we have that also realized by Sonya herself here, just going straight for Wrath of the Berserker instead. So up at the top lane, the pressure still continues, and that's currently really the game plan of Team Growth. Just say, okay, we're going to start pressuring the lane, we're going to try and take down the keep here as well. So that's something that they're currently attempting to do. The problem for the red team, for Team Rip, is that they just really haven't responded in the same way yet. But the rotation to the top is something that was absolutely not expected, and that nets a kill against Greymane, and it should also net a kill against Morales quite easily. So another double kill here, where this variant holds the bot lane with the help of a camp that they took. So just to sum this up a little bit, the early game split with the 2-3 for Grumpf was definitely putting Team Rip in a bit of an awkward spot, and they started to try and deal with the situation by having Genji rotate. That didn't quite work out, so they refocused their attention on having a strong 4-man and starting to get kills. And you can really see that also mirrored in the kill count, and they want another one. 6 they do have already, and that's number 7 coming in as Chromie takes the opportunity for the setup with a time loop here, exploits the fact also that there's no cleanse on the other side, and gets another kill in. That's one of the main reasons, by the way. Well, we're actually seeing Team Rip now taking a lead in experience, even getting another kill against Greymane, even though they are behind in structures. So they are really dominating these fights simply by trying to get kills and by sniping opponents, exploiting the lack of cleanse and making sure that throughout the Varian, Chromie and Stukov combo, they're getting the damage in, and then Toxic on his Genji is oftentimes jumping in to just finish the final, or get the final hits in and finish the target off. And that all of a sudden gives them a massive amount of wave clear that we're seeing here. So up to the top lane, we're having Sonya now starting to take control of the mercenaries, also starting to take control of the beacon, and this really puts Captain Caps now in a position where he can start threatening this wall. And as soon as the structural position is starting to be equalized, we're actually going to see a much bigger experience lead on the side of Team Rip. Now in a 5 versus 4, they are happy to give up that bot lane for now. Mitch with a nice dodge here as Decker was trying to root him down, but still getting body blocked. So they try to keep Varian alive, and for now that's actually happening. But with them 5-manning the bot lane so that they don't lose the beacon progress, Sonya is just absolutely dominating the top lane. There's no one to contest her in any way, so the towers are already gone. Level 13 coming into play for the red team, and they're going to also try and take that fort here as well. The rotation is starting up, and that means that we're having bottom lane taken again. So the blue team, Team Grumpf, they have to try and take the bottom top beacon, and that's not going to be easy. Temporal loop again, and Morales is getting wrecked. Toxic going in and just obliterating the support. Sonya, on the other hand, Captain Caps, fighting a 1 versus 3 here. Not quite 1 versus 9ing just yet, but it's getting close to it. Moves out of it, has of course quite a few talents that give him the survivability here. Hurricane being one of them, Life Funnel, and even when we're talking about no escape and the added movement speed, it really helps in a situation like this to just get out of harm's way. So they're in a pretty good spot here, and now they're starting to just simply use those rotations to get the beacon progress. They've even taken down the bottom fort. So at this point, we actually see the red team, Team Rip, taking full control of the map. I haven't really talked too much, by the way, about the build that we're seeing on the side of Deckard. There has been quite a bit of stuff going on, and it's still continuing because here's the taunt as they're trying to go for puzzles. The heal is there, the double support in the 5 versus 5 setup now trying to do their thing. Deckard with the rejuvenation potion, super important on level 1, and we have him here also with the scroll of Identify, which is pretty much the go-to on level 1 for Deckard Cain. Massive push now through the bot lane, and with the double support setup, that is a little bit of an awkward situation that we have for Grumpf now. This is definitely an attempt of Team Rip to try and go for the first keep in this first game of the Division 2 match that we're seeing here, of the best of 3. And they're already starting to move through. Here again, Chromie's trying to go straight for Johanna. The heals are in. Morales doing whatever she can. Horrify comes through and pushes Captain Caps in, but immediately we're seeing the Hurricane being used, going straight for the spin to win, interrupted by Johanna, but Fefsta in the backline nearly down, and Toxic goes in with the Dragon Blade and drops him another kill. 10 kills against 2. They're going in again, trying to make it a double. The keep is about to fall. Here comes the time loop. Temporal loop drops another target, and even with Sonya dying, it's a 2-for-1 trade, and the keep is down. Fantastic spot for Team Rip as they take the level 16 talent advantage over their opponent and just absolutely dominate in this mid-game and game number 1. Varian by now going also straight for his Shattered for the Mortal Strike on level 13, and we're having at the same time Sonya with even a little bit more self-sustain since she went straight into the Nerves of Steel on level 16. Pretty brutal setup here for sure. It's just like one of the main problems is that even with the double support that we currently see on the side of Team Grumpf, they have a very tough time to deal with this very explosive aggression that we have coming out of Team Rip, where they're just focusing on a single target and destroy. There's no cleanse available. We don't really have a panic button mode item on the side, ability on the side of the blue team. There's no divine shield, no ancestral healing, nothing they can really give. some burst heal in that sense. We're seeing the super healing potion taken on level 13 for Deckard Cain. Maybe with a shield on 4 they could have solved some of those problems, but the fights are still going on, and this time they might actually win it, but nope, scratch that. Genji falls, but so does Greymane, and the chase is on again, as now with Genji and Greymane gone, the damage output, especially on the side of the blue team, has significantly fallen. This was also one of those fights that you don't want to take in the first place. You don't have level 16 talents, but they got caught on the camp and they were trying to fight for it. Mitch now still looking for a target, but he has to be a bit careful. Is still low on HP. Sonya taking the bot lane again, denying vision by taking out the walls and pushing now the 2 catapults towards the core, which is going to force a reaction eventually. I mean, at this point, the blue team has to react. They need to send someone down to deal with this. Greymane is back, but he's immediately heading up to the top lane. I'm actually a bit surprised that that Team Rip isn't really going more aggressively for that front line here, even with Swagobat on his cooldown around, since there had to be a reaction from someone on the side of the blue team. And yep, Grumpf sent puzzles down to make sure that they're putting a little bit of pressure onto this, but that would have put them into a really good spot to take that top lane there. Johanna down again, as we're having a bit of a trap set up around the boss area, so Johanna takes the damage from Chromian, gets silenced by Stukov, and that opens with a level 16 talent. Now of course a fantastic opportunity to go straight for the boss. And that should more or less seal the deal of the second keep, and if that doesn't do it, then I feel the next beacon phase is definitely going to accomplish that. 85% on the core, so it lost already 15 to the catapults and the camp that got pushed into it earlier, where we saw Greymane trying to deal with it, but now the double beacon has been taken and the boss is marching through the top lane. So it's one of these situations where as Team Grumpf you're in a lost spot, because you don't really know what to do. You have to defend against the boss, but you at the same time also need to somehow reclaim one of those beacons, and doing both of these things is going to be pretty much impossible. So right now we're just having Team Rip setting up a bit of a checkmate position. The only thing that could really turn this around, in my opinion, is now that level 16 is finally in the hands of Team Grumpf, that they get a couple of kills here. They need to get those kills fast though. They have the tools with the 16 talent now, but they are up against 100% versus 0% Zerg wave and the boss, and both of them are going to barrel through the top lane, so this is looking bad and worse. They need to make that fight now. They need to really go in. They can't, I don't think they can really hope to defend at the core. Engagement is happening, but it's actually Team Rip that goes in and they get the kill, trying to go for that immediately. No Lornado, by the way. Stay a while and listen was the level 10 ability that Deckard chose, and that really didn't do too much in that last fight. But now we have the boss moving towards the core in this first game, and also the entire Zerg wave starting to head for victory as well, and this is not looking pretty. This is definitely going to be the end of game number 1, as we are having Team Rip taking the lead in the best of 3 series at HeroesLounge. GG. Okay guys, game number 2 is coming in, and currently we are looking at Infernal Shrines, our second map. So we have currently Team Rip in the lead. They did really good. Rising in Pyjamas. They had a great kill comp. They were lacking maybe on the waveplay department. I really feel that Team Grumpf kind of defeated themselves a bit in draft. They had an idea coming into this, and their idea was, okay, we're not going for the traditional 4-1 split, we're going to go for a double healer composition, and we're making a 2-3 split happen and gonna win through that and push them down with a Greymane combo up at the top. One of the problems that they had is I feel they needed to adjust that idea when they saw that there was a severe lack of wave clear on the other side. They would have benefited from a more traditional setup, in my opinion, because their wave clear was so strong that I think they could have pushed out the bottom lane quite heavily. The problem that they had is that even with the double support that they chose, they were lacking cleanse and any kind of burst heal to deal with the combo that Team Rip was trying to execute, where they went in with Varian and then followed up with a Stuk of Silence and a Chromie burst damage. So that was a bit of an issue. and this time we have Stukov immediately banned out just to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So already a bit of a wrench in the plans of Team Rip if they try to go for the same kind of blow-up setup again. So already adjusting here a bit. Now keep in mind that this is a Division 2 match that we have in an amateur league. So this is HeroesLounge.gg, and as I said before, if you haven't heard of HeroesLounge yet, make sure that you check out the website. Go to HeroesLaunch.gg. It's a fantastic amateur community. If you want to play in a bit more of a competitive setup in Heroes of the Storm, even if you're only an individual player and you don't have an entire team, make sure to check them out. Sign-ups for the new season are going to happen at the end of the month. They had for this season, I think, 160 or 170 teams, so it's a really, really big community. And there's all, like, from all kinds of levels of play, you have people forming teams here and playing against each other on a regular basis. So Diablo banned again, and we have already seen a bit of a priority here towards the bans on the front line in the last game. This is more or less continued here, and on Infernal Shrines, Diablo is of course pretty fantastic. Now, I talked about this during the first draft, and I want to highlight it again. Probably going to do that more in the future with any Heroes Launch games that we cast, because the important thing to note here is this is not only about meta. Meta is really important and is something where teams can definitely learn and improve very quickly, but depending on how much time you can spend practicing, your hero pool might not quite reflect what's currently the strongest option in the meta itself. So some of these picks could then really just be something where a player has a personal reference, for example. So we have for now Sonya as an early pick here on level 1, so already very strongly highlighting the offlane and the presence on the shrines itself. I'm not quite sure if Sonya is necessarily first pick worthy in that particular setup, but Sonya can be extremely powerful, especially if your opponent doesn't run any interrupts against the spin to win. So if you are getting the whirlwind through consistently, especially on a map like Infernal Shrines, where the objective is focused on a single point, then that can be really powerful. We oftentimes see a pick like Sonya come in a little bit later during the draft and not as a super early first pick, at least in the current setup. But that, of course, is also undergoing occasional changes here too. But for the offlane, there's still an abundance of great opportunities of what Team Rip can take here. I mean, we talked about Blaze earlier, for example, who sets just a fantastic layer of defense up, especially in this kind of objective trade. So before that even happens, we have Rip focusing on Gul'dan and Malfurion here as the two early picks. Malfurion is always a great option. Like, the hero is fantastic right now, and rightfully so, the priority pick next to Stukov when it comes to the healer slot. Gul'dan, great on the map as well, not only because Horrify can basically disrupt anything that your opponent throws at you, is a massive game changer, and also can get you a kill, but at the same time the wave clear is of course highly important. And that's not only the case because you want to set rotations up, it's also important because you are in a position where through Gul'dan you can then dominate quite heavily on the shrine itself and really get that damage through. So when we're looking for their opponent, we still have a couple of things that they really need to try and think about here. What kind of setup, for example, do they want to want to play with this? And that's actually something that I didn't really expect. We have seen a bit of a resurgence of Anubarak in HGC when teams were going for very aggressive compositions. But with a Sonya setup, I really expected them to go for more of a hit point heavy tank at the front line that can stand next to her. This is very much an engaged setup through Anubarak that they have now. And they have Phoenix with it as well. Now, Phoenix is an interesting hero that can definitely work out, and he brings AoE to the table as well, to a certain extent, throughout his auto attacks too. Question just simply is going to be later on, is that going to be enough, and what else are they going to draft? Are we, for example, going to see, let's say, another mage here? Now, Anubarak as the main tank usually requires you to have these snap engagements into the backline where you try to blow someone up. And a lot of it centers really around his cocoon being used on the opponent's healer to make sure that you can drop a target and then fight from that early kill within the team fight with a 5 versus 4 advantage in the setup. He also enables a lot of very strong rotations that allow you to just get individual kills against someone. But he suffers from a couple of problems as well, and that's that once he engages, he's basically in. And we haven't really seen Garrosh banned out yet either. So I could have totally seen Garrosh being picked here by Team Grumpf, but they decided to go for Anubarak instead. Now, if Garrosh isn't banned out at this point by Grumpf, then there's still a chance that we're going to see it for Team Rip. And that would already put more pressure onto Anubarak in the sense that Anubarak has to be very careful how he engages into the fight. Because if he engages into the fight and he engages into Garrosh and Garrosh just throws him into the backline, all of a sudden you don't have an escape anymore. And then a Nubura can be exploited pretty quickly. So that's definitely one of the risks that you run with such a setup at this point. We have seen in the previous game also Greymane run. Okay, there's the Garrosh ban. So I really like the Garrosh ban for that particular reason. There's still other frontliners, though, that could be very, very strong here for Team Rip. Again, we talk about Blaze at the offlane. We talk about Johanna, for example. Murden is still around. On the offlane, you don't even have to commit to Blaze. You have other options here as well, but I think Blaze would be pretty fantastic for them. Especially since you can negate a lot of the abilities of Phoenix with it, too. So that's another setup that we can see here. Now, we have seen Planet Cracker in the past to burst through a bunker, but a salvo, for example, can easily be negated by Blaze and his heroic. So if you go for bunker, then you have definitely a tool against that. Even if Planet Cracker is being chosen, bunker gives you a lot. So there's definitely a couple of things that you can use with that setup. Here comes the Haka for the offlane though, and we have Johanna taken. Now we talked about Johanna a bit earlier. The wave clear that she has is good, and she was one of the tanks we talked about for the front line. The Haka offers the global, so that's more of a macro style that you're trying to play. Can definitely work out. Personally, I would have really loved to see Blaze here, but the Haka can work too. He has the AoE that you need, he has good wave clear, he adds the global element to the game where you can try and play around your opponent, especially in the early stages. You don't have to join fights as fast as your opponent does and rotate heroes away from the offlane, so you can stay for an additional wave, you gain a bit more experience, and then you join the team fight just a little bit later, but just in time for 5 versus 5, and you slowly and steadily net your team an experience lead. We have seen a focus on tissue generation as a build for the Haka, so there was more on a survivability setup instead of race guard the Haka that we've seen highlighted in the past very heavily. I'm going to be seeing what's happening here in that game. But let's double check what Grumpf is taking for the last 2 picks. They need a support, first of all. Could see maybe Rhaegar here. Tychus being picked. Alex Straza. Alright. Alex Straza, so a bit of zone control here again. We have Tychus trying to burn down Johanna here. Again, blinds from Johanna might become a problem with that, but you have now... The cool thing about this setup is this is pretty much a bit of an NA approach, or something that NA did for quite some time, where they used Alex Straza and Tychus to have Dragon Queen available and to have Tychus Odin available. So all of a sudden you have 2 transformations available that really net you a lot of control around the objective. And through that, if you stagger that properly, you oftentimes see teams focusing on the objective very heavily and just winning the Punisher. So I think that's the thought process, or one of the main thought processes for them here, trying to use that to some extent. If they can use it for a few objectives and claim the Punisher and get value through it, then they can definitely get ahead here. But we had really good coordination from the red team, from Team Rip in the last game. So if they get early kills and get those experience and talent advantages before they head into an objective, then that could very quickly turn against them. Greymane has the last pick, so we'll have a bit more of direct damage now added to the equation as well. And yeah, I'm curious how this is going to end. We have currently Team Rip in the lead. This is a best of 3 in Division 2 of HeroesLounge. So guys, we're going to jump into game number 2 on Infernal Shrines and find out who's going to take it here. Game number 2, everybody. We just saw Team Rip take the lead in the best of 3 series in the last game. Now we have to the left Team Grumpf with Fefstar on Tychus, Xep on Alex Straza, Elrog McBong, not to be mistaken for Elrong McBang. On Sonya, we have the Swagobad on Phoenix and Puzzles on Enubarak. And to the right side, the team in the lead, Team Rip with a stream on Gul'dan, Toxic on Greymane this time, Adenyor on Malfurion, Captain Caps currently on Dehaka, and Mitch on Johanna. The blue team definitely under pressure right now, so they need to take this game to tie the series and make sure that they're having a chance to win it all on the last map. So we're going to find out if that's going to be working out for them or not, or if we're going to have the 2-0 from Team Rip, who had a fantastic game number 1. Cocktail focus now as the build on the side of Greymane, so different map, different strategy, and therefore different build that we're seeing from the Grey main build that was used in the last game by Team Grumpf. This time it's more about getting the poke damage in, also from outside of the shrine itself, and that's why we're currently seeing that setup with the cocktail. We have Captain Caps already all the way up at the top. Didn't really go. Okay, there we go. Starts to move in, gets a bit of AoE pressure going, and tries to push the lane out. Whereas down at the bot lane, we're having the pretty much traditional rotation between the bottom and the mid lane. So when you're looking at HGC style play, then oftentimes you have the solo lane set up all the way out by the top, and you have rotations happening between mid and bot lane that sometimes can get interrupted depending on what kind of heroes are being played. Are there, for example, heroes like Genji that can make a quick rotation to the top lane and put pressure on there? Caps missing the Tong here, definitely not helping his cause. And Elrock McBong on his Sonya is starting to really pressure this out. Now the wave clear is actually pretty decent on the side of the red team. We're seeing that already in player streamers heading into the mid lane now with his Gul'dan. But also with Toxic on Grey main, the pressure onto camps is pretty significant. And that's something that's being used here immediately. But also on the blue side, the same thing coming in. Both of the teams are trying to get some pressure going through the middle. Now, keep in mind that we have our first shrine spawning here in the mid lane, so these two camps up here to the left and right are going to be highly important, since if you can take them just as the shrine spawns, you will be in a spot where your opponent will either have to react or just has to accept that they're going to lose structures. One of the two. For now, though, we have pretty much just a brawly setup here in the middle. It's a 3 versus 4 setup, as we still see Phoenix down at the bot lane. Bit of an early lead in experience already for Team Rip. And we have now 4 Malfurion in the vengeful route, so going full broccoli here and trying to get him into play. We have a slam build for Sonya. Okay. Now, Sonya, of course, saw a couple of changes, but having a slam build is still pretty interesting to me. Haven't really seen too much out of that, especially for the solo lane. You oftentimes see block being taken because it's such fantastic talent to give you the early on edge, but this is really just an attempt to go through slam here with Furious Blow and the Shattered Ground. I would have expected more of a focus on maybe even Whirlwind, to be honest. Especially after the last game, what we saw here, and given the map, where a lot of the objective is really just focused on a single point. Puzzles missing the initial stun, but unfortunate for him here. Captain Caps easily moving away from the gank, and at the bot lane, the time was used to grab one mercenary camp that is now already starting to put the pressure on. Phoenix has to react to it, and as the shrine is now activating, that gives a time lead on the side of the red team to take the initial lead in minion stacks. Now, when we're talking about builds, there's a couple of other things I quickly want to highlight. We have the bigger they are taken as a level 4 talent. Also important to note here to just try and burn down tanks, especially Mitch at the front line here, of course. Now, Sonya even moving back to the Nexus for a moment was already pretty low. And to be honest, it looks more and more as if they're willing to give up the first objective here completely. Sonya is not making, is finally making her way over, but they're already 22 stacks behind. We still have the opportunity to go for Dragon Queen, and there they go. But they're so far behind that I don't think that is going to be enough. 33 taken, and that just showcases again how good that wave clear is that we are seeing from Team Rip. Rising in Pyjamas is just doing really good work with, first of all, Gul'dan, of course, who has the Echo Corruption, and on the second hand, then also Johanna, and they're going for the kill. They get Phoenix. Phoenix is down, and the Beetle is dead as well. The Exterminators are in the house, and down goes a Nuburak. He got a Nuburak as we have the Punisher now starting to move through the mid lane as well. The Haka already making his way over up to the top. 2 kills against 0. Level 7 talent in the hands of the red team, and they go for the Wizened Duelist here immediately. Johanna also with a few adjustments on her own build, going on level 1 straight for the hold your ground, trying to be a little bit more beefy up at that front line, and even the Sins Exposed taken here as well. So definitely some adjustments in the builds. Not really the meta builds that we normally see in HGC. The Punisher, by the way, wants a piece of the cake as he's nearly taking down Swagobat here. The mid lane already losing the fort, and that is a massive win for the red team now. Not only taking the wall, but taking the fort itself. And that lead in experience is now, it's definitely a problem. The lead in experience is so significant that there's a very realistic chance that level 10 abilities can be in play for Team Rip once that the second objective spawns. And that's really dangerous for their opponent, because Grumpf is going to be in a tough spot if they have to give up another Punisher here and then have to deal with level 10 and an objective. Now Sonya, with the attempt to head into a slam build, is now on level 7, making the adjustment into the Poison Spear, so straight going for that. We had, of course, a couple of shifts in the Sonya build happening because of the recent changes to her talent tree, especially now with her Battle Rage, which was traditionally on level 4 and a huge asset for her, moved to level 7, and now contesting with these abilities. So that's definitely something where players have to adjust slightly. That being said, we have also on level 7 now the combat advantage taken for Phoenix. I want to highlight that we have him not really with a lot of... he has a little bit of movement speed here, but this is basically just a variation where Phoenix wants to chase. So if you are going on level 4 into target acquired, your thought process is oftentimes that with those attacks in with the movement speed that you gain, you can chase opponents. And oftentimes we're seeing instead Phoenix players trying to be a bit more passive, where they use the added movement speed after the shield got depleted, just so that they can move out when they get focused. So now we have level 10. And that comes an entire level before Grumpf is going to be able to take that level for themselves. If Grumpf, on the other hand, if they are able to just at this point soak well, they should still be able to get the ability for the Shrine Spawns. And I think at this point this is pretty much a given. But I really like that now level 10 immediately forces an aggressive stance from Team Rip. So they're doing this perfectly. They're taking the camp, and then with the level 10 ability they go for the wall. And they know exactly that there's absolutely nothing that Team Grumpf can do to contest that properly, since still they can't go up against heroic abilities. So we're gonna have level 10 versus level 10. And this is going to become really interesting for me personally, because I think this is the moment where with Odin and with Dragon Queen you can finally make your stand for the objective. And this is going to be incredibly important here as well. I love the timing that we're seeing now. So just as the shrine gets announced, we're having immediately the camp about to be taken. So they can delay the cap a little bit, and I would love that. I love that they take camp, but I would like them to delay it. And they're not doing that. So what happens now is that with Team Grumpf capping their own Shaman camp, they can delay that cap slightly and wait until the camp at the top lane, which is now coming in towards the right, is pushing into this area, and then their own camp plus Sonya can easily get rid of it, and then Sonya can rotate down, which will force Dehaka to stay longer because he has to deal with that camp here too. So definitely an advantageous position now on the top lane for Team Grumpf, at least for now, but an early lead again in minions for the opponent, already sitting at 20, and that's just too early. Now Dehaka had to stay at the top, as we already said before. Sonya comes in, good spear. Here comes immediate Tychus Odin. Captain Caps is moving in, and he gets the drag on. We already have Cocoon used in the backline. Once again, we're seeing Gul'dan with the damage, getting the Air Corruption out and nearly taking Elrond McBong out here. Elrond actually on his Sonya is in a huge amount of trouble, nearly taken apart and needs to get away. Alex Straza helping him to heal up, at 32 stacks taken by Team Rip as they go in. They go for an Ubaraki, gets the shield, but that's not gonna be enough. The front line gone, and now the back line open. The isolation hits, and that's the end of Sonya, as we have kill number 3 and 4 confirmed for the red team. Team Rip is ripperoning right now their opponent, and up to the top lane with Dehaka taking the camp down. Before he moved down, he could even keep his own Shaman camp alive. That means we're having another fort in danger. The one at the bot lane is already about to fall. A 2-level lead for Team Rip, and they are just hammering their opponent into the ground here. Great play by them thus far, and definitely making it very, very difficult for their opponent, for Team Grumpf, to get any kills here. Rising in pajamas with a place here, as they already go for the wall at the keep itself. The top fort has fallen. 4 kills against 0, a 3-level lead at this point, and opening up the wall is just going to be so important for later on in the game. So 9.5 minutes into this, the keep has already taken damage, the wall has been destroyed, and up at the top lane, Dehaka was able to also put some pressure onto the top wall itself. And that's where the tower has nearly fallen as well. So currently at the bot lane, or currently on the map, we're just really seeing Team Rip run with the advantage. So at this point, you're 2 levels ahead, you have a stats advantage, and you have the talent advantage. So your entire goal is like dominate the map. Just make sure that you are in a position where you can force things. You are taking the camps from your opponent, you're trying to limit vision by destroying structures, by destroying walls as well, and you're laying traps as long as you have the talent advantage. So they have the Haka, that's the global aspect that we've been talking about during the draft, that they can now really use to simply push out the top lane continuously, but they need to be careful because there's always the gank potential, and that's exactly what happens here. And Captain Caps is actually going to fall here. It's going to happen sooner or later now that his burrow got interrupted, and that's going to be the end of him eventually. So a little bit unfortunate here. That's one of those moments where you have to be careful as the offlaner, global or no global, when you don't have vision on the map. So a bit of a misplay. Still a 4-man push at the bot lane. Vision at the top was still there, and they're just trying to go for the keep. They can definitely try and burn this one down. The question is just, can it work out? Because here comes the cocoon, and that forces them into a 5 versus 3 in a few seconds. The fear on the other hand, and the silence allows them to move away, at least for now. But then you're on Malfurion. He's down, and Mitch is now about to fall as well. So they lose 2 heroes here. Now, I think the attempt to go for the bot lane after the Haka was taken out was a bit misguided. There's 2 ways how you can play this. Either you push the lane out and you move back early and you don't lose anyone, or you just say, fuck it, we go for the keep, take it down, and if we lose 2 or 3 heroes in the process, we're fine with that. And I think given that they just lost Malfurion and they lost Johanna, they could have, for example, sacrificed, let's say, one of their DPS and just said, hey, we take the keep down and we'll lose that hero, but we're going to make it a worthy trade. Now they move back and they didn't get anything out of it. So that's really one of the problems that they currently have here. That it was one of those things where they hesitated and they needed to make a decisive call at some point. Either go in early and take the keep and just accept that you're going to lose someone on the way back, or move out early, don't go for the keep, and keep everyone alive. So level 16 talents are still going to be ready for them. And that's huge, because now as we have the shrine activating another 17 seconds, it's absolutely fantastic. So right now, we're currently having a situation in which we're just seeing the extra talent about to be exploited. We have, for example, right now also the Ruinous Affliction taken. We're looking at the Echoed Corruption here. Can take a quick look at the stacking process, of course, as well. Oh, but the Haka again getting ganked. And that just can't happen. That just can't happen at this moment. 5 stacks on the Wizened Duelist as we're starting to move towards the Shrine as well. The Ruinous Affliction is in play and we have Echoed Corruption completed. But now there's a 4 versus 5 and they have to move away here. The engagement in the backline is already happening and Streamer has some trouble here, but he's still being kept alive. But now we already have Odin, of course, burned as well. Big pressure at the top lane. I'm really liking the Mercenary Camp timings that we are seeing for Team Rip. But now they are trying to focus again on the objective and they're still down 1 hero. The Haka can burrow in though once that he's back. But here comes the Dragon Queen already being used as we are seeing Grumpf desperately attempting to get this Punisher. Mitch moves in and tries to get a few more stacks, but he does condemn a bit too early. Caps now on the move. Isolation is not coming out just yet, but they're trying to get this, and they might actually. They take the control and they push them back. Puzzles is low. He can't re-engage here that easily. 32 against 35, and they're going in again, but the Haka is down. Who's going to take the Punisher, though? It's the blue team. It's Team Grumpf, as they are starting to make a comeback here in this game. They get the kills. Mitch on the run. Everybody else is also trying to escape here. Streamer is moving away, but it's Johanna that's falling down here as the Punisher is moving through. 6 kills against 4 at this point, and all of a sudden we are seeing the blue team starting to make it back into that game. This is actually starting to become a little bit insane, and a lot of it still comes down to that decision that was made at the bot lane. And the Haka getting ganked twice and dying to it. The Haka needs to play safer on these off lanes when he tries to push out the lanes when he doesn't have vision. So a big problem for them. Level 16 now, the Giant Slammer here. Another massive talent for Sonya's single target damage that he's trying to pull in. Mystical Spear as well. Pressure through the mid lane. Johanna back in just a few seconds. A lot of heroic ability is still available here, and they can definitely go for them. Punisher is already down to half HP. This should still be a good defense. They should be able to hold the keep here and maybe even get a kill. They get the they hold the keep, and this is really the moment where if you are on Team Rip, you have to take a moment. Take a moment, take a deep breath, and be like, okay guys, just relax, we still have this. We still have the better position on the map. We lost 1 fort, that's all we've lost. Our opponent has lost a lot more. We might be slightly behind in experience, but this is really just a moment where it all comes down to coordination. If we don't lose the Haka this early in these situations, we are still absolutely fine. If we can get a kill somehow, even better. At this point, I would have liked Johanna to go for it and just use the Blessed Shield. Where's the Blessed Shield? Finally being used, and that's the kill against Anubarak. They get the kill, and now they have the momentum in their favor again. You are in a 5 versus 4, what do? Go bot lane, take that keep down. You have that poke available. Gul'dan has Ruinous Affliction. I really think they should just go for the keep. I also think that we're seeing a big mistake out of the blue team. Moving to the top lane in that spot is really awkward. If they want to try and defend, they have to be in position already, and they're not there by any stretch of the imagination. So now there's the attack happening, and all the Gul'danis have to do is fire away here, get Greymane in a good spot for a second, and the keep will fall, and then you just simply back off. You go for it. Tigers burned Odin, another setup here, and now you just move away. Tigers burned Odin, that's a wasted cooldown right now, and you simply move away. Now, we have to put a bit of a caveat on this, because Tigers burning Odin is definitely a bit of an unfortunate spot because he didn't really get anything out of it. The only way this would have worked for them is either they burn Odin over here, if they are able to stop their opponent before they reach the keep, but he used it so early that it should be ready for the next objective. So it's not quite lost yet for them. The problem is that he used it in a situation where he couldn't really get anything out of it. If, for example, for some reason Team Rip would have decided, hey guys, we can actually core, then Odin would have been a great choice here, but usually try to make this a little bit later. Both of the tanks taking position here to anchor the camp. Job well done here. And now, of course, if you are on the red team, your idea is make sure that you get level 20. And now Captain Caps has to be the one that pushes out the bot lane. He wants to push out the bot lane continuously here right now, because that's going to put core pressure on. But that also means that you have to be careful that you don't die. You need to be careful that you are not getting ganked. So they take the camps away, that's awesome. There should still be a defense at the top. Now is really the moment when, okay, bot lane Shrine is spawning here. Didn't even see that, that makes it a bit awkward, because you can't quite capitalize on the advantage that you have through the bot lane. Your opponent should be able to go for the Shrine and defend at the same time. But we have now the top lane pressure. And they're close to 20. This is actually them taking a risk. They don't want to fight right now, but they feel with the two camps they have an advantage here, and here comes the fight, and they need to win this one. Puzzles is already about to go down, and that's the end of Anubarak. He just doesn't have anything to stay alive here. Great isolation, Elmal Fury and Silence coming through as Sonya is destroyed, and that's the second keep of the game. And it should be core. You have the 5 versus 3 advantage. You have the level 20 talent. That's the moment when you go in and you go for gold. Already Dragon Queen popped and Odin as well. The cooldown is ready once more. They can literally move back if they want. They don't have to fight here. They can move back and simply try and go for the objective instead. Mitch is low and needs to be cautious here. Mitch is really low. He has his 20. He should be able to survive, and indeed he does, but moves away for now. 20 seconds until Sonya is back. There comes the kill against Phoenix. Great kill here. That was a big one. But they can still go for the objective instead if they don't feel comfortable to go for core here. So they have 2 lanes pushing now against the opponent. We're already seeing catapults moving through the bot lane. They have the global at their disposal, and we're already seeing them on the point to get the Punisher. That will move through the bot lane, and then they should be going for it. So right now, 20 talents are in. They're even playing it a bit greedy here, going straight for the camp. No problem with that, since we have Phoenix down for another 30 seconds. That staggered death really, really hurt Team Grumpf. It really did. It's that one thing where if they get Anubarak and Sonya back, they might be able to re-engage. But with Phoenix falling, one of the main damage dealers, they had no chance here. So right now, we're seeing 19 minutes into the game, another camp taken, the Punisher nearly claimed. And at this point, this is going to be a Mortar Punisher. So everyone is just waiting for their cooldowns again. We're currently having another 15-20 seconds until we're seeing Tychus with Odin. Bit of a trap set up over here. Nice move by Mitch. Double checking the brush here, because they already knew that one of the best engagements for their opponent would be a flank behind the Punisher. But they're not giving them that. So they're starting to move through. Up at the top lane, we're having catapults already mass up, 3 in total, so that's a huge problem that they have to deal with eventually. And down at the bot lane, the entire power of Team Rip is starting to move in here. Punisher baited into the middle a little bit, but that's not the only thing that you have to deal with. Here comes Odin, Punisher again on the core, and down goes Anubarak. He just doesn't have the sustain that he needs for this game here. They're going in, and this should be the beginning of the end. Catapults already on the move, locking in. Sonya in trouble. Spin to win, at least for now. Elrock McBong is dying, and so is the core. The 1-0 lead leads to a 2-0 victory for Team Rip. grip in this HeroesLounge GG match. Congratulations and well played by Rising in Pyjamas.